Michelle L. Clifton. I write the Taryn O'Kelly Murder Mysteries, or I should say cozy mysteries, or fluffy mysteries, whatever you want to call it. I promise we'll keep the body count low, but I hope you have some laughter today while we're in here. I want to welcome you to Silver Springs, the fictional town in which the bulk of my series will happen in. Today, I know you guys mostly came here for Cruises, Cocktails, and Corpses, but I'm going to give you a teeny back history because Party Planning for Murder is book 1 in the series, and Silver Springs, Colorado is where the whole group is from. So, let me just switch to the next slide here. Every mystery needs a few good clues. So here's what we'll be uncovering today. Where it all began, my Colorado roots, and kind of how I created this. Meeting my characters so that you can hopefully fall in love with them. I sure have. The murder is, but it's fun. It's fun. My author life, what it is like to be an author, what I have to do as an author, what's next in the series, and question and answer. If you guys have questions during the presentation, just raise your hand and I can pause for a minute. If it's something that you think of then, you don't have to wait till the end. So, all right. So, hi, I'm Michelle. Let's chat. The first time I thought about killing somebody, spoiler, it was jealousy, not murder. However, when I was young, I wanted to become a DA. I wanted to put bad guys in jail. I was volunteering at the DA's office. I had an internship. I was graduated from high school. I went to college for a political science degree. I was on track to do all of these things and just, put real bad people in jail. John Grisham was one of my favorite authors at that time, so I was like, ooh, all into the courtroom stuff, and I like to talk and I also like to argue, so it kind of was fitting. But life happened. I ended up getting married, ended up having a baby, had some little things happen in our life, but we also had a bachelor party where an entertainer decided that my husband was the focal point of the party. And that is when I first thought, maybe I should write murder mysteries instead of go to school and do paperwork, because I enjoy actually writing stories. I enjoyed puzzles. I enjoyed all those types of things anyway. So I started thinking, well, gosh, I love cozy mysteries. Maybe I could write something. So that's kind of what was one of the real life moments that sparked it. But I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. I also was inspired by the author Janet Ivanovich, because also while my kids were very little, my son was a little bit of a sickly baby, and there wasn't a lot of being able to do much of anything his first year of life. It was nursing and cleaning up throw up, not pretty things. But my mother was amazing. She says, you're doing all this reading. I'd sit with my daughter, we'd read little kids' books and stuff, and then maybe she'd take a nap and play puzzles and things. She's like, you should read these books. They are funny, you will like them. So she got me reading the Janet Ivanovich books, and I just fell in love. And it was just funny, and it was such a great escape. There's just so many wonderful things for just dealing with being a new mom and not being able to do a whole lot. So that's also the kind of second layer that got me really thinking, gosh, so I'd had this other experience. She's pretty funny. Maybe I could do this. So to go back a little bit in my history, I'm from Colorado originally. I lived there for 40 years. I grew up in Southwest Colorado. We grew up hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, you name it. If it was outside, that's what we did. When I was a kid, we were building forts and climbing trees. When I was a young adult, I was building forts and climbing trees with my children. So we were wild heathens out in the forest. So we moved to Cape Coral to get the full experience of Hurricane Ian, just in time for that. It was a blast. I'm not sure how many of you stuck around for that. We were the crazy newbies that was like, hey, we've done blizzards before. We can handle a hurricane. We did handle it, mind you. We rocked it, but it did stink and it was not one of my more fun moments in life. But we camped for 2 weeks in Cape Coral, just camped. And I'm from here actually, by the way. I live here in Cape Coral too. So let me show you some pictures of Colorado real quick. Some of the pictures of our adventures over the years. If you've never been to Southwest Colorado, it is absolutely beautiful. The Rocky Mountains are just something, if you've never seen, once you see, you just, nothing will ever look the same. Everything will look like a hill to you from that point on. These mountains are unbelievably beautiful, and there's a piece of my heart that will always be in Colorado, but I do love Florida. This picture right here, this is taken off of a little hill, if you will, looking down into Durango, where I am from, and you could actually, if you look hard enough, you can find my house down in there. So this is where Silver Springs is based off of. I didn't want to name the town that Taryn's from as Durango because there's a few things that are different, obviously, but my main inspiration behind it all was Durango, and so Silver Springs is essentially the fictional version of Durango, Colorado. So I'd love to introduce you to my cast, the people that live in my head, that sometimes don't ever stop talking to me. And honestly, sometimes I spend more time with them than I do with the lovely people in the back of the room that have been so supportive. So Taryn O'Kelly, she's 26, she's a party planner. She's sweet, sometimes a little salty, fun-loving. She's an amateur sleuth only because she has no choice. That's not what she planned to do. That's what happened for her. She loves cooking, running, coffee, lots of coffee, and wine. Her love life is a little bit complicated, and she's a knack for getting into trouble. So sometimes it's a little bit ridiculous, the things she finds herself involved in, but one thing's for sure, she doesn't stop until the mystery's solved, and she is very, very loyal. Alexander Cruz, also known as Alex, is her boyfriend. He is a former Air Force pilot. He is a private pilot. He's strong, ruggedly handsome. He's kind of a man's man. He's a silent yet effective type. If his traditional masculinity and secret ways don't draw you in, his protective nature will hopefully lure you into his lair. And hopefully you'll fall in love with him the way I have. His favorite thing is peanut butter cups. Let's see here.
He's a typical man.
This one, Robert, we'll talk about him in a minute. He's a different kind of man. So Candace is Taryn's very best friend. They have been friends since kindergarten. They went to school together. They basically are inseparable, and they think of each other as blood sisters. They are just the best. Candace, unfortunately, is crazy, and she balances Taryn's super control freak, I've got to have everything orderly fashion out. Because Candace is sassy. She says things that everybody else wants to say that, maybe wouldn't. She just says it for you. She can be a little reckless. She's very passionate, but she likes to think of Taryn and herself as Charlie's Angels. So every time there's a body found, it's an adventure for her because why not? We're Charlie's Angels. Look how cool we are. And she knows jiu-jitsu and she does self-defense. She's a pretty kick-butt individual. Taryn looks at them more as like Lucy and Ethel because she doesn't feel that they are quite the superstars, but Candace has them in their head. But Candace is always very positive and it takes a lot to rain on her parade. She's very fun. She loves her coffee. She loves her men, and she loves Taryn's cooking. But she does hate running. Taryn loves running, so whenever they have to run together, she complains. So Robert, he is Taryn's ex-fiance. He's obsessive, and he is rich. He likes women a little too much, and that's kind of why they're not together anymore. And he's a narcissist with more money than brains on some days. He's addicted to women and getting his way. Sometimes you want to punch him, but overall, he's drop dead gorgeous. He ultimately is very sweet, and when push comes to shove, he will have your back in the end. This character, however, he was supposed to possibly not keep returning, but he became such a huge part of book 1 and became such a huge part of the group that he refused to let me kick him out. To the point where he shows up very quickly at the beginning of book 2. Oh. He wasn't supposed to necessarily be there, but he insisted, I'm showing up, I'll be here. So I don't know if you've talked to other authors, but we do have people's voices in our heads. And our characters are very good at letting you know whether or not they like something you're doing with them. And if they don't like it, they go dark, they go silent. Like, writer's block is real, and it's mostly because the characters have decided, I don't like what you have to say, we're not doing this. And they go on a mutiny. They go on a riot and it's over. So Robert was insistent upon staying all the time, and he and Candace fight all the time. Candace is always threatening to kick his butt, which she could do. So these are the supporting cast members of Silver Springs. Taryn's family, she's very, very close with her family. She has a mother who, when she's super stressed out, she cleans, like down on the floor, hands and knees, toothbrush on the baseboard, and the amount of chemicals used, you probably would start a chemical investigation for chemical warfare. Her father is a retired Marine. He's the commander-in-chief of the VFW, and when she gets the cleaning supplies out, he checks into a hotel room. So Taryn comes by the crazy, not far from the tree. She has a brother who is a former member of the Army. He's also a firefighter and a comedian. He's a couple of years older than her. And she has two grandparents who live with her parents, all part of a little arrangement deal because they're getting kind of old. The grandma seems to know things before everybody else. She isn't actually a psychic. This isn't paranormal, but it's like she always is in the know. She just always is in the know. Not through even gossip, she just can read the room really well. And the grandpa spends a lot of time at the VFW reliving war stories. So that's kind of, oh, I almost forgot, Candace's boyfriend, Trey. So in the first book, she doesn't have him until the middle of the book. He's sticking around too. He's the one that's just said he's sticking around. And he is works for the government, but he can't talk about it. And he thinks the whole group is a little bit crazy. So my cast is starting to turn into what was one first-person story, which they'll stay first-person, Taryn telling the story, to an entire pack of friends that go everywhere together to cause trouble. So every good mystery needs a change of scenery. So for book 2, it meant swapping the mountain air for the ocean breeze. And these are the guest stars of Cruises, Cocktails, and Corpses. I was telling you a few minutes ago how the characters talk to you. Character number 1, Jose. When you meet Jose, hopefully you'll hear this in your mind. Jose does not shut up. Jose, I fell in love with him. He insisted that I love him. He is the quirkiest, goofiest character, but he tried to move the story far too fast, far too quick, and reveal and spill all the beans. So unfortunately, I had to tell him no and put him in the corner for a little while, add a few extra chapters to the section of the story because he was just on a roll. So he was more fun to write and more fun to get to know than I could have ever imagined him to be. Fedora Man. He's a guest on the cruise and he seems to always be watching Taryn and Alex. And I don't want to give secrets away in the story if you haven't read it, so we'll just kind of skip past him, but he is the main character and he's on the ship. Gabriella, she works as a dance instructor and a performer on the ship. She kind of brings your exotic mystery to the book. She's Colombian, she's very dark complected, beautiful caramel colored hair. She dances just unbelievably beautifully, mesmerizing. She knows all of the typical Caribbean style dances, but she's also very proficient in just a traditional like ballet, jazz, tap, everything. She's just all very well-rounded dancer. She's incredibly sweet and a little mysterious. Santiago and Carmen Gomez are also guests on the cruise, and they are from Colombia as well. There are several interactions with them. They're going to be part of our side group that probably won't ever see them again. Probably won't ever see most of these people again because we'll be back in Colorado for Silver Springs next book. Max is an arrogant head of security on the ship. He's one of those guys that has way too big an ego, way too big a head, and a chip on his shoulder because I'm the boss and you have to listen to me. Every time I wrote him, I wanted to smack him. I was like, this guy is driving me nuts. So hopefully he irritates you guys the way he irritated me. Kari is the ship bartender and she meddles in everything. You'll get to meet her. She can be a bit of a problem. Anton is on ship security as well, and you'll see him kind of show up in and out throughout the whole book for a few different reasons. And then Sarah is a guest on the cruise. She works for the DEA. So I don't know if that gives you a few clues, but I don't want to say any spoilers. But writing for a book from the cruise was a lot of fun. Honestly, it kind of created that more of the like Agatha Christie's Murder, was it Murder on the, not the Orient, that's the train one.
Death on the Nile.
Death on the Nile, thank you. It's more of a closed, like a locked room type style book because it's all happening on the cruise. However, there are ports that they go to, and then there's still, the mystery continues within the port. So it was a fun, unique way to write everything. It was interesting to just turn from your traditional small town cozy mystery where everybody kind of knows different people, what's going on, to a cruise ship setting where you don't know anybody and you have no idea who you can trust. Really all you have is yourself and the person you came with, and you have to hope the person you came with is actually good too. And in this case, we actually know that because of book one, but it was a lot of fun. I've gone on a couple of cruises before, so there's some authenticity to the cruising on it, and cocktails, I mean, who doesn't love cocktails? I love cocktails. So I hope that you find it very fun, tropical, engaging experience. There's shore excursions and of course, disaster in every corner. So when, kind of behind the mystery and how I write, I have to find a victim, then you gotta work with your suspects, and then I want justice. Because for me, it all starts with murder and it all has to end happily. So while cozy mysteries do end happily, I'm kind of that happily forever style romance. That's where my romance kind of comes in, that background with a little bit of that. Everybody in the entire book has to have a complete ending. So while my protagonist will have an ending, you'll notice that in each of my books, I don't leave anybody out, so everybody's little side stories and everything gets some form of an ending, because I want everybody to be happy at the end. I want the whole world within the book to be complete, and everybody can sleep at night and say, wow, that all worked out for everybody, great. Can't wait for the next one, because I want to see it to be just as happy. So that's how I write. But as far as finding people to kill and finding inspiration as to where the mystery seems to come from, I usually listen to a lot of people. I take a lot of true conversations. Silly stories of somebody at work, or just funny little things that people will say have happened to them, or in some cases rude encounters that you see with people, or scammers that you hear about on the news that have done something to somebody. Those are excellent people to murder in a book, because none of us typically have like a lot of an emotional connections to these individuals. So I like to keep it cozy by picking somebody that I personally would not like, so that hopefully my readers wouldn't like them either, so that you're not feeling like, well, why did you kill that person? And that's one of the beautiful things about cozy, is usually you pick somebody that, you know, unanimously the group is just gonna not care for. And so the mission then becomes to connect the murder to my protagonist, because I need to have a reason for Taryn to be involved. If she's just planning parties and somebody dies, 15 blocks down the street and it has nothing to do with her, what's the point of her getting involved? Why would she need to be investigating the murder? Why can't the police just take care of it? So I always come up with a reason to connect it to it. Most of the reasons end up being because she's a party planner, so something's gonna threaten her event with what's happened. Either the death happens, part of an event, this during an event, this on her vacation. So there's reasons that she is kind of drawn into it in this, oh my gosh, if I don't fix this now, everything else I'm working on, the control freak about her, is gonna go up in smoke too. So I like to plant some red herrings, and I like to give everybody a motive. So I usually start off with at least 3 people that could potentially be the murderer. And I will say, specifically in this one, all 3 people were excellent candidates, to the point where nobody wanted to reveal who really was for sure going to be the murderer until I was starting to get to the very end. So occasionally I'll have characters who are like, I don't know, maybe I want to be that person. And maybe I don't want to be that. Oh, well, I actually kind of think I want to be that guy. So I've had that happen with different characters, kind of again, like I was saying with Jose and with Robert, and insisting upon being in there. Different characters will just kind of turn a little bit and say, no, pick me. Please pick me. I want to be that guy. And so then you kind of balance some of the dark underlying tones of, drugs or human trafficking, any kind of murder type stuff that can happen. You want to lighten it with a little bit of chaos, some funniness, some shenanigans. And that's where I feel like Candace and Taryn become a fun little duo. But the boys add another whole layer. Robert adds the most ridiculous amount of layers of funny to the world, because he is just so out there. He's just a very loud, obnoxious individual in the room, but you can't help but think he's kind of ridiculous. Like, there's a scene in the very beginning of the book where they're doing their lifeguard, or their life training for like if the boat were to get crashed. I forget the technical term right now, so apologies. but you're supposed to be on deck. You learn about the life vests, where the boats are at. He's in his swim shorts, his flip-flops, and his life vest is on, and he has a snorkel on, and he's walking around talking to people because, you know, he can. He's got lots of money, he doesn't care what anybody thinks, and he's kind of adorable. So little things like that that I try to create. All these characters just tell me what they want to do. So then at the very end of all my books, there's always justice served and hopefully a good cocktail. Or if you're not into cocktails, a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Maybe all three, I don't know. So this is actually how I start the plotting of my books. And this is a actual screenshot of part of my murder board for Cruises, Cocktails, and Corpses, and I blurred it out a little so hopefully you don't see too much. But what I do, people often ask me if I am a plotter or a pantser. I'm sort of in the middle. I always have a basic outline of what I want to happen, what I'd like to see, kind of who I'd like to involve. But Taryn and I end up improvising an awful lot. We end up cruising down the road and then other people get involved, I mean other characters, obviously people in my head, they all get involved and then there's some twists and turns that are completely unexpected. But this is how I keep track of things. So what I do is I will put on my murder board my victim, and then I will have everybody different color codes, different the names on them. And as they drop clues, I go in and I type it on my murder board so that I can see when a reader is going to get a clue and when a reader may not need a clue yet. And so, for instance, Jose, we'll go back to him because he was a problem child. He was talking too fast, going too crazy, and so what happened was I was able to discover that even easier on this board as I'm dropping all these clues, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is saying way the heck too much. Like, we need to talk about this for a minute. So I was able to rearrange by just tracking it on the board, and I always do some character profile sheets too. I didn't put them on the slide, but I have to do some character sheets. Always get some sort of picture of them up on the board, and then I'll do some traits and some different family ties and things that might help me really fully develop each character. So it's just kind of the fun stuff on the side. It's more work and it's more time, but I have a ton of fun doing it. And it's how I keep things straight. Hello, how are you? Yes, come on in. I'm Michelle. Nice to meet you. So I thought, so you kind of know my writing process. Let me tell you about a day in a life as a writer. These are my assistants, Flynn and Paige. You can see they work really hard. Paige is asking for treats, Flynn's taking a nap. However, most days I have a giant dog bed that's right next to my desk. She's sleeping on it and he's standing all over the computer in the way. And if he's not standing in the computer on the way, he's bullying her off of her bed and telling her to leave. She's a St. Bernard Aussie mix. She's actually 75 pounds. That picture does not show how big she really is. He is a Maine Coon Ragdoll mix, but he's a runt, and he's only about 9 pounds. So when you think the size difference, he bullies her all the time, and they love each other. But Taryn has a cat who is actually based off of Flynn. So authors wear many, many hats. We are kind of everything, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, like what we have to actually do. But we work really long hours, and it's endless to-do lists. We spend more time with our characters sometimes than we do with our family. And the joy, though, from all of it, the sacrifice from all of that, is doing things like this. Getting to meet readers, getting to talk to you, getting to just chat about my books, and then see what you like, and getting feedback back, and if there's something you do like or something you don't like, and learning from you guys, because the whole reason for writing is to create something you guys are happy with. I mean, it's a passion to put my characters out there, and I hope that you love them the way I love them. But I'd love to hear different perspectives and different ideas on what readers have enjoyed and what they haven't enjoyed, or maybe what they want to see. If you have a murder mystery, you're like, you know, I would really love it if you would do X, Y, and Z. Maybe I could turn it into something. So I absolutely enjoy speaking with readers. That is my absolute pride. And then I also love collaborating with other authors, which I'll go back into that a little bit later. But I just really enjoy the community that comes with being an author, the community of readers and the community of writers. It's just such a blessing. So back to the 3 hats, or many hats. I give them 3 as buckets, but they all have separate ones. So as the author, you are the creator. You have to do the writing, you have to get the editing done, the plotting, the world building, recording if you're gonna do audiobooks on your own, or if you're gonna have it out, still have to listen to them, still have to be sure that you like the way the voices sound. It's all of the crafting, it's all of the story development, all of the fun, designing the covers, all the glitzy, glamoury, exciting stuff about being an author that you're like, yeah, look what I do. It's so much fun. It's the best day ever. But then you have to be a marketer. And to be a marketer, it's a little challenging for some people. It was challenging for me at first. I am actually slowly improving because it feels like it's sort of taking a little bit of your creative, like it's sucking a little bit of creative away. You have to be creative as a marketer, but I'm trying to sell people things. And I don't want to sell things to somebody who doesn't want it. Like, that's not my goal. My goal is to give a book to a reader that wants some form of escapism, who wants to laugh, who wants to cry for maybe a minute, because it's fluffy murders, wants to cry for a minute, and then just really enjoy that escape and be able to pretend that you're somewhere else for a day. Pretend that you're somewhere else for a couple of days. So the marketing aspect is a little bit challenging. Developing newsletters, developing reader groups, all of these things that end up actually being part of the creative fun once they get developed. For instance, I have a newsletter. If you all want to sign up, it is just emailed the first Friday of every month. But occasionally Taryn takes the newsletter over. Sometimes she writes to the readers and says, hey, this is what Michelle's doing right now. Can you believe she's going to have me find another body? Like, why? How many bodies do I have to find before she's done telling me I get to do investigations? So she gets a little sassy and she'll talk to the readers too. I was just at Tropicon a couple weeks ago, and today, if you guys want, I wrote a short story for Tropicon, Flamingos and Fatalities, Murder at the Tropicon. So this short story is actually connected to all of these. It's my characters. It's 2,000-word murder mystery, the fastest murder mystery you'll ever read. And I do all these extra creative things on the side, still writing. But it's kind of part of my marketing so that maybe I can entice one of you guys to fall in love with the characters the way I have. And then the manager, the captain of the ship. This is probably the most boring part of the job for me, and I think it is for most creatives. It's the financing, it's the publishing deadlines, the logistics, it's the tracking of the receipts and the miles that you drove and all the boring stuff. All the boring stuff. But if I didn't have all of these hats and I didn't do them all, I would lack in some area because they all actually work as a cohesive unit. So if I can find a way to make each one of them work the way they should together, then I've done my job well because I've produced something that you guys love. I've made readers happy, I've made myself happy, and hopefully a story that'll live on longer than me. So that is the many hats authors wear. But let's talk about the series order so it doesn't get confusing. Book 1, Party Planning for Murder. Book 2 is an in-between the numbers novella. It's about half the length. It's still a murder mystery, but it falls between these two as far as storyline goes. And then book 2, Cruises, Cocktails, and Corpses. Sorry, getting a little sticky mouth and a quick drink of water here. So what's next for Taryn and the gang? Book 3 is coming out in April. And the captain hat said I will be announcing the title in December. So apparently I better hurry up and get that finished. But we'll be back in Silver Springs. Of course, there'll be more murder and there'll be more fun. And the supporting cast will come back, the Silver Springs supporting cast. At this point, her brother is going to have a little bit bigger role because there may be a little bit more arson and fire involved in this next one. So, every great story starts with a motive. So if today has given you anything to think about, I hope it's not new ways to dispose of people. But maybe you just appreciate the satisfying fictional justice that we get with the books. So we all have a motive for murder. Mine just happens to be with a book deal. So I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to me talk. Thank you so much. I hope you know a little bit more about me and a little bit more about my characters. My website is Salty Inspirations. 2 parts for Salty. I'll give you a quick story. My husband helped me come up with this because we have our new salt life here. So the website I designed after we moved here, but I am also a little salty sometimes. And he's like, this fits you. And then inspirations because of all of these things that inspire me. So Salty Inspirations is my website. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well. You can either look up Salty Inspirations or author Michelle L. Clifton. Either way you search both, you get me. On my website, I do collaborate with a lot of other authors, mostly other cozy mystery authors, but others as well. Each month, at least 8 to 10 authors come to visit my website, and they give giveaways. The newsletter, I will put in who's visiting. We try to kind of get each other different blog posts, newsletter swaps, help each other out. The really fun thing to announce that you guys are the first to hear, this is the marketing part of me. Sign up for my newsletter, because I'm wearing the marketing hat, because starting in December, I was actually invited by author Jolie Tonal. She writes historical cozy mysteries. She is putting together an advent calendar where all 31 days of December you get a book for free. One of my books will be given away for free that day too. So I think my giveaway day is December 6th, but you get a link in the November newsletter that will let you go each day. It's an advent calendar, each day get it, and you can download a book without having to give your email address to anybody else. It's just to me to get the newsletter, but then you don't have to sign up for anybody else's newsletter. You don't have to pay anything. It's an automatic download. It's a Merry Christmas and cozy mystery authors that you might get to meet new authors. So that is part of why I love collaborating with other authors, because we can bring so much more. I never see another author as competition because I can't write fast enough. I hope that you love my stories the way I do. But I've got 3, and I've got the 4th one coming out in April. Hopefully, if everything goes well, I'll have another one out at the end of the year, but it'll be a brand new series. So that's another thing that I'm working on too. But the way I look at it is these books are meant to be consumed relatively fast. They're fast-paced, lighthearted, easy reads that you can take to the beach, take on a weekend, and just enjoy and devour in a couple of days. I can't possibly write enough to keep you guys completely entertained 365 days of the year. So I look at it as, why not get with as many other authors as possible and supply as much fun to you guys as I possibly can. So that's kind of my motto, is to collaborate with as many as I can, and if I can get as many fun giveaways and fun things for you to try out, maybe you'll meet somebody else you love. All right, so let's do questions and answers. I threw a few up here in case any of you are shy. But if I have anything that you think I haven't talked, and I talk a lot, so I apologize. Maybe I've answered all your questions. But if you have anything that you'd like to ask me, ask away.
Do you have to read book 1 and then 1.5 and then 2 to do read? Or, I mean, like the character backgrounds and stuff?
I always recommend any series start with book 1. Even if, like for instance, if you guys, some of you guys were Janet Ivanovich fans, I didn't actually care for her book 1 in her first of her series. But I'm glad I started with it. I think I fell in love with the series by book 5. But I liked it well enough, but by book 5 I fell in love with the series. But for me personally, as a series reader and a series writer, I always recommend starting with book 1 because you do get the backstory of characters. However, I do write them all to where you would never have to read the other one. You won't really be lost. There's a very, very brief reference to something, but it's enough of something that you can go, okay, that happened, and you can move on with the story without being, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on, I'm completely lost. So they're not written where you have to read them in sequential order, but I do think they're best enjoyed in sequential order.
The way I describe that is I review fiction for Library Journal, and that's come up sometimes where, you know, it's the 3rd book or the 6th book. And the way that I describe it sometimes is that not everybody is having a dinner party that you're invited to and everybody has been friends since kindergarten. You know, you meet friends along the way, and sometimes you may have somebody who was the high school bestie, and sometimes it's somebody from work from last week, and so they're gonna have different levels of knowledge of each other, and if you're there long enough, you're gonna pick up all of it. You may not be as close, but you're gonna get some of it. So I think that the good authors then put enough where it's, if it's significant, you can be the new friend.
Yes.
And have as much investment in that person as the best friend.
That's a very good point. No, and that's excellent. That's a great way of looking at it. And so I do try to write them the same way, to where you do not feel lost. You shouldn't feel lost. The one thing I have said is everybody, my reviews back from individuals that have talked to me, they love book 2. They liked book 1 a lot, but they loved book 2. However, they've all read book 1. So that's one thing I also think that can happen when you already know the characters and you're picking the book back up, like you're saying, they're your kindergarten friends. So you already know, you're like, okay, what are they doing next?
Yeah.
So there's a level of that as well, but you could read them out of order if you wanted to. Yeah. you won't miss anything detrimental that you'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what the heck happened.
Well, cause sometimes, like if I take a lot of books out of the library, and they don't always have all of
Yes.
them, you know, so you're starting and then you're like, okay, wait a minute, you know, yours may not be that way, but sometimes you're looking at one and then you're wondering, cause they go back years, you know, like
Oh, yeah.
years, the friendships, and you're like, wait a minute, like that happened to me with the first Louise Penny book I read. You know, it was like book 8 or 9, and you know, but these people have been in the book since book 1, and so you miss that depth of friendship and continuity of them. You know, the depth of their characters too.
I agree. I try my hardest to read the first book of every series whenever I read, just because of that. That's just my personal need to read from the beginning. And a lot of times I will wait and put my book on a hold list or whatever I'm doing to try to get to that first one. There have been books that I'm like, oh, forget it. I just don't want to wait. I'm just going to go ahead and try it. So I've done that. In my book, there is a little bit of reference to book 1. You might question and wonder if I should read book 1 and find out exactly what happened, but it's not enough to leave you to where you're like, okay, now I'm completely lost. You're not lost.
Yeah, I just know that it happens sometimes because with each book and the same characters, you deepen each of their characters. Yes. And so it's like, okay, wait a minute, I must have missed something. Or you pick up a book and you don't realize that there's 2 books, you know, before it.
Yes, one thing you'll see, I will always do, all my books tell you the book number right on the cover. Because
so
that
nice.
is something that has been a pet peeve of my daughters and I for years.
That's so nice.
Even on this one, it says, in between the numbers, 1.5.
And then you're gonna reorder them like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and put them in temporal order rather than.
Not yet. I don't think so.
Eventually, give us some time.
No, it's like this little short story I wrote. It just lives in the universe of them. There's not part of a timeline because I can't work it in right because it was specific to Tropicon. So it happened in Pensacola. I had to have a reason for them to come to Pensacola. So it was a short story. So it'll just be kind of like, I don't know if you guys are Avenger fans, but you know, the metaverse of all the superheroes, you've got your chronological timeline, but then you have all these little spin-offs.
That's
That's
so typical
these.
cozies.
Yeah, exactly. We're
Yes,
superheroes.
my daughter made me watch the metaverse in chronological order.
I
She said
did
to
too.
me, you are so lucky because you get to see it in order. She says, I had to wait sometimes 2 years for a movie to come out.
It's true.
Yeah. And I said, I'm lucky. I mean, I watched 21 movies. Because she sat there and I had to watch them.
So that's kind of what I'm doing with these little short stories. They don't really have a date and a time. They just kind of flow in the circle of everything, and there are same characters.
As an author, how do you get the library to take your book?
So there's different forms. There's a form for the authors can fill out and say, hey, do you wanna take my library book? And they can say no. I've been very fortunate. These guys are super supportive of letting me do it. Heather, I don't know if you saw her in here. She's actually a wrestling mom. My son was a wrestler and her son's a wrestler, so we had a connection that way. But the one way to be sure that you could get your book into a library is that you definitely need to publish wide. You don't just publish on Amazon. Libraries don't typically like to buy from Amazon. I have heard that they will, but they don't typically love to buy from Amazon. They want it in a bigger catalog. So my books are published on a wide platform, but I get the library control number. I apply for that with the Library of Congress. I have my own ISBN number. Salty Inspirations is my company, and that's who buys them. And then I publish through Ingram Spark, which is also the same distributor that your traditional big 5 publishing houses do.
Nice.
And then there's library pricing in that guides you and walks you through of what libraries have to pay for a book versus what everybody else does. Because libraries usually pay a little bit more for a book, but then they have an X amount of checkouts that they can do before they have to buy it again. And authors don't get a royalty on the books, these kind of books. Some EPUBs, depending on the library's program and what channel they go through with the EPUBs, occasionally authors will get a little royalty on an EPUB every time it's checked out. But it just depends on if it's Hoopla or Draft to Digital, or not Draft to Digital is what does it, OneDrive, Libby, things like that. And then also libraries have to pay a little more for the EPUBs too, because they can have a much higher checkout rate than if they had just done paperback. And I don't know the exact numbers. I knew when I started all of this, but it's one of those data things that just about gonna know. The captain was sleeping on that one. Sorry. Took a nap.
And if anybody has any more specific information, I can provide that. You know.
So what is your job exactly?
I'm the manager of public services for the Lee County Library System, so I'm in charge of all of the buildings, the people, the programs, the services.
Oh, you're the head.
Yeah.
So she can tell you exactly how I ended up here.
She runs a book group at the Fort Myers main branch library.
Yeah, so there's, but you're right, that the cost is, $75 for the typical license for an ebook versus $25 for, a hardcover.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a bit different, and that's how the libraries can allow so many people to check it out.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, and I push, and honestly, and maybe I shouldn't, but you can tell me if I should or shouldn't do these things. I push readers to request books at the library.
Sure.
Like if you don't have space in your house, you don't want to buy a book, maybe you don't have it in your budget to buy the book, but you really want to read it. It helps authors out to be in the library, and my kids grew up at the library, we support the library like crazy. But I would tell them, and it's amazing to me how many readers do not know they can do that.
Well, I've requested a book to be bought. Well, I just said I wanted to read a book, and Lindsay ordered it for me, I think it was an Amazon book, and she said, normally we don't, but I'll get it for you, Barbara, and, and there it was, but.
Well, and it's on the website, we have the request, and we have now where an author can do separately, because there's a lot more questions that want from an author versus just from somebody saying, I saw this book, I want this book. But it's super helpful, because we want to be able to.
I didn't expect her to order it for me, believe me.
We wanted to be able to get, now, there are some books that we can't, because, the publishers are very, they want to have their money. And so they're gonna lock down our ability to get some books right away or at all. And some of the, and that's why there may be books that, like particularly for ebooks, where, we don't have them. It's like, well, but I see it on Amazon, on Audible, why don't you have it in Libby? Well, why don't you think we have it in Libby? Because don't you think that Amazon's gonna wanna have a contract with, Random House that's gonna lock down that title for a little while to force people who don't wanna wait.
Amazon does do that too.
Yeah.
Amazon will do a lot of ebooks, specifically in audiobooks. They have basically a contract with the author, whether it's the publishing house or the independent author, that is locked in. So like if my books, which they are not in Kindle Unlimited, but if I decide to put one in Kindle Unlimited, I have to pull it from everywhere else. They did just allow libraries, just in the last month or so, they just decided that libraries could share with them, and they would be allowed to do that now. But had I done it previously, I would have to pull my book from everywhere before I was allowed to put it into the Amazon Kindle Unlimited. And then I have 90 days where I have to keep it there, and I'm not allowed to sell it anywhere else. I'm not even allowed to give it away. So if I did that advent calendar and I wanted to give you an EPUB, I am not allowed to do that if it's in Kindle Unlimited. So there's a lot of stuff in the publishing side. There's a lot with that captain's hat, and the captain needs an assistant.
Does the captain have a good lawyer? Because it seems a little
Yeah, the captain does. The captain needs a lawyer. Yeah, sometimes the captain has to seek lawyer advice. It's true, because really there's so many other layers that nobody ever thinks about that you have to look into, and it's crazy. There's so many rules, and you don't want to break a rule, because we're not here to break a rule. I'm here to provide entertainment, and unfortunately, with Amazon, with the way their rules can be, you can accidentally break one and not even know it, and being completely innocent and not, if I want to give you an ebook, it's just because I want to give you a gift. Like, I'm not making money off it, I'm just saying, you can't. So there's a lot of rules that you do, that you have to follow, and it's really good to keep up on it. I actually follow a couple different people in the publishing industry, and I am constantly taking classes. That's one thing I didn't mention on here with my writer's life. I take classes probably at least least 1 or 2 classes every single week on top of everything else that I'm doing. And it's always in one of those areas, the creator area, the marketing area, or the captain manager area, just because I want to make sure that I know what's going on in the world, that I am up to date on what the current marketing trends are, or what the current publishing trends are and rules are. And of course, why not crafting some stories?
And you live in the same 24-hour day that we do?
I often complain that my day needs to be about 200 hours long, but it doesn't. So, you know, you do the best you can. I can tell you right now, I'll give you a little bit of advice. Well, not really advice, a little bit of secretness. The creator me is slightly behind right now because of all this fun. The marketer me is a little bit behind right now because I have a newsletter that needs to go out Friday. And the captain me is like, hello. Why are all these things falling off your list? So, they'll all get picked up at some point. Tomorrow morning, I like to quote this, and so does Taryn. Scarlett O'Hara. After all, tomorrow is another day.
I won't worry about that today, I'll worry about that tomorrow.
Yep, exactly, I worry about it tomorrow. And so tomorrow will come, and my to-do list will be twice as long as it was today, and I will have a small panic attack. This is kind of like the morning ritual. Give it some deep insight now. Get up, half asleep because I get up nice and early. I'm all stiff. Get up, go to my computer desk, the dog talks to me, get the computer going, rub my eyes, I'm like, come on, you gotta wake up. Start typing, get in the groove, everything's good, everything's great. Then 9 o'clock comes, like it's time for some coffee. My husband's up because he works late. He works until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So he's up, we're gonna have a cup of coffee together, everything's great. And then all of a sudden, coffee hits, and I go to my to-do list, and I'm like, what the crap just happened? I have 700 things to do, and it was beautiful for 2 hours. But no, it ends up being great. You just do what you gotta do, and you just hope for the best.
Yeah, we all get done with what we have to get done. It's just like, when you said everything that you do, it's like you live in the same 24-hour day.
No, I love it. No, sometimes I think I don't, but no, it is. It's just you find a way. You find a way to do it, and if you're passionate about it, you definitely find a way to do it.
When you're retired, you don't do all that stuff. We did all that stuff. When we were your age, we did all that stuff.
It is true.
And it got done.
Somehow it happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same with raising kids. I mean, my kids are 22 and almost 20. Same thing with raising kids. Somehow you manage to get everything done.
Yeah.
They go everywhere, they do everything, you take them everywhere, they can't drive, they have dance competition, they have wrestling. But you do. It magically gets done.
And you work, and you take care of your husband and your mother and whoever else.
Exactly, so it just happens.
Have you found in doing these that the path that you, and I know that you map it all out, but the path that you thought somebody was going to take, that you're like, okay, I'm doing it this way, and then by the time that you're almost there, you're like, no, this would be better, and it's sort of like all right, undo and take a whole new path.
Yes, there is a lot of that. I like to think that my paths are like all paved, like a yellow brick road, you know. And then there's me with a machete, and I'm bushwhacking my way to the Emerald City because walking the road is way too easy. So, no, that actually does happen a lot. Not to the point where the story is completely changed by any means, but the basic outline almost never looks like the final product. It's more like, it's like, what is I quote Captain Jack? It's more like guidelines for pirates, pirate rules, right? I can't remember, but it's like, they're more like guidelines. My outline is a guideline.
Right.
We try to follow it, but, you know.
Yeah, well, I've heard other authors say too, it just, like, I start out with one thought, and then the character just develops differently.
They do,
and,
they do.
And things change.
They absolutely do. The characters will tell you they don't want certain things. It's funny, it feels almost like you become, maybe I'm slightly schizophrenic, I don't know, because of all these things, but they will tell you, like when you're trying to develop them, sometimes characters will fight you and they'll say, that's not who I am. You're trying to make something that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And actually, the more you pay attention to that, as you're typing and you're writing, you're kind of doing your thing, I think it becomes more smooth if you listen to it, because you're not fighting it the whole way. Then it actually becomes more of an enjoyable thing for the reader too, because it's a flow that you should let happen. At least that's what I think anyway.
Well, that was a nice talk. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Yeah, any other questions? No? Oh, thank you so much.
No, this is
So-
nice. Cause I didn't know anything about you. I just knew that there was an author talk, and I said, uh-huh,
Same
and I
here, I
asked
was just in
Dora.
the library.
Yeah, and I asked Dora, I said, do you have the books in the library? And she says, I don't know.
You do! This actually, all Lee County, they shuffle them around. Last I checked, there's 3 Party Planning for Murder, and I think 2 of Cruises, Cocktails, and Corpses.
Cause I asked her, and then I went away, and then I couldn't come for something, and I just like, it went out of my head. Until all of a sudden it's November 4th, and oh, it's the author talk this week, you know.
Well, thank you so much for being here, because it makes my day. Like I said, this is like probably the most fun part of my job of all the hats, is I love talking to readers. I like answering questions, I like helping people. If any of you want to write, look me up. I'll get you hooked up with my writers group. I'll help you in getting into whatever avenue you want to go through. I'll give you tips and tricks. It's not necessarily the right way, but it's my way, and I'll be more than happy to tell you how I've done it. But everybody's path is different too.
Can I ask who else is an author here?
Is anybody
I'd
else?
like to be. Pardon? I'd like to be. I wanted to ask a question in the sense of, this might sound bad, but so do you write your book first, front to back? Because you said you did your own editing.
Yeah.
No, I don't do the editing.
Oh,
I
okay.
have an editor. One of them
I
actually, my
do
daughter is
know.
my first editor. She reads it first. She's my line development editor. She actually does that on a side job if I ever. So she is a line and plot developer. So she reads it first. But I don't do my own editing. But anyway, sorry, continue.
So then, so you do write it front to back, it sounds like, and then you contact the publisher once it's complete, or do you submit your, as you said, your guideline for the storyline first, and then they encourage you to develop it? I'm just curious about
The beginning.
Well, so I'm self-published. However, I do have a little insight on that, and our writers group has a few that are traditionally published. There's both routes you can do. You can have your story written, and then you can submit it. You can submit your manuscript, and you can see if they like it, and then their editors will look through it, and they might make you make a lot of changes. It can happen. And they could say, well, I don't care for the way your character maybe was too old or too young or whatever, and adjust a few things. So that is one way that you can do, and I'm not sure which publishing companies do that. However, there's been a lot of talk recently about sending out inquiries to the different publishing houses with maybe like chapter 1 written, and then an entire outline and kind of your character sheets. Character sheets are huge if you're wanting to get a publishing house to grab you so that they can actually see, especially since you're only giving them like a little synopsis and a small first chapter. So you would write all of that first, throw your character sheets in, send your inquiries in, and see if they would be willing to pick you up, pick your story up. Do they like it?
So, wouldn't there be a risk of that if you don't copyright your first chapter? If you just automatically send it and then wouldn't there be a risk to that?
I've just taken a couple copyright classes actually, because you guys have probably all heard of the huge lawsuit with the AI. I can't remember the name of the company right now, but where the AI company was pirating books and teaching the AI from it. So the copyright laws are getting completely messed up now. And it's super unfortunate because it's getting very muddied. So now to copyright, there's a lot of recommendations to copyright before you ever publish the book. So the moment the draft is done, you copyright it. And if you don't make huge changes, it counts. If you change a paragraph here or there, not a big deal. If you say you had 24 chapters, it's copyrighted, and suddenly now you have 34 chapters because you added that much more to it, you actually have to go and re-copyright that. So there's like goods and bads to doing before and after. I do know that if you copyright your book and it's in EPUB form first, then you don't have to send them copies of the book. If you copyright it and you printed it in print copy first, you have to send them 2 copies of your book as well. And copyright's not cheap. It costs anywhere from $45 to $85 per book. So as far as answering your question for your first chapter and your idea, you could absolutely do that if you're worried. I've been told, and I've not experienced it, so it would definitely be maybe a question for an attorney or something possibly as well, or maybe somebody who is experience the true traditional full route. I have heard though that traditional publishing companies don't have to worry about that because they have their own integrity they have to live by. They aren't gonna steal somebody's stuff, so there's kind of an honor system. I used to be worried about beta readers and ARC readers when I was first starting, because I thought, gosh, I don't know if I wanna give my copy of my book out to somebody and I'm hoping they're gonna write a review for me. I'm hoping they're gonna do all these things, but what if they go to take it? But typically, if you are using different like Story Origin and Book Funnel and different places to collect ARC readers or ARC reader services, those people also, they have their own business, their own integrity that they're kind of held to. So your chances of somebody stealing your work are lower then, but there's never a guarantee. So
Such a skeptic.
and it's hard. It is so
It's
hard.
complicated.
It gets so complicated. It's so difficult, and that actually is a huge reason a lot of people don't end up doing a whole lot with their becoming an author with their careers. They get so scared they don't want to put it out there, and it's copyright or fear that people might not like it. You've spent all this time, and I can tell you, imposter syndrome is real. It is a huge thing, and you can easily fall into the pit of thinking that, oh, you're not good enough for this, this wasn't any good, I spent too much time, I shouldn't do this, who am I to publish a book, who am I to be an author, who am I to stand up here and tell you how I do things, because none of you knew me. I'm not Janet Ivanovich. I don't walk in the room and everybody's like, oh yeah, we know her, she's been selling books for 20 years, look at her, she's gotta have millions of dollars. I'm a nobody. But you have to push past that because everybody starts as a nobody and everybody starts fearful and everybody's worried. I mean, there are bad people out there, and that's why I gotta murder them all in the book. I really copyright some stuff, man. We're gonna have somebody that stole copyright and die.
I'm doing nonfiction, I can't kill anybody.
Send them to me. Send them to me. I always need to kill somebody, so we'll just do that.
When do you do the title?
The title, so the title.
You do follow the convention of alliteration, which is just so hard to avoid.
It is. I broke the mold with that originally, and
You
then
started.
I know I started, but then I started thinking no, because it's easier for people to find you when you have enough things
Sure.
that look the
Yeah.
same. So all my novellas will be 2,
Okay,
and all of my books from here on out will be 3.
nice.
It gets tricky though, as you know. So I do write them when the book is at least about halfway to 75% finished.
Mhm.
I start to get the titles out because at that point I kind of get a vibe for what I want the book really to be, how much of the title is going to be in it, just so that I can
Yeah.
make it right. I also don't do book covers until the book's in editing, which I have author friends who they have 3 series, like trilogies ready, have designed every cover and every title and haven't written 1 word yet. And I'm like,
Oh.
how are you doing this? And they're like, why do you do it so backwards? You're weird. I'm like, you guys are weird. So for me, I do it after because I gotta get the vibe for what the book is. I gotta feel the vibe of the book. I gotta feel the funnies. What's the book feel like? What's the cover? And I want the cover to match the book.
And that's one of the things we talk about in book discussions is, the author picks what the title is. So why did the author pick this title, or where does it come from? And it's interesting because there are some books where, clearly the book is a person. It's a person's name, the daughter of Molokai or something like that. But then there's a place. So now suddenly the book is about a place. The title is a place, and so then it's like is the place another character in the book, or is the person the important part in that? And so it's always interesting to see, if the motivation for that.
Yeah, mine's always after the book is almost done. Like a good chunk of it's done to where I really feel like it'll reflect what the book has. And obviously Cozy Mysteries being a little different. There are the alliterations, a lot of them are. They're fluffy murder, so we've got to make it fun. And there's definitely cocktails in it, but that's not the focal point of the book by any means. But you're on a cruise ship and most people will have a cocktail or 2.
Sure.
So I thought that kind of added to the funniness of like, yeah, well, we're on a cruise, but it's, one cruise. It's not plural, even though the book says it is. Their corpses, it is true. There are bodies, more than one. It's a book. There are more than one. So, so you kind of try to play off of it. I also try to keep things a little catchy. Hopefully they might not remember my name. My name's the most boring, basic name ever, and I did not use a pen name. This is me, Michelle Lee Clifton. Michelle L. Clifton, it's me. I thought, I'll just do this. It's great. I want people to know who I am. It's fantastic. Should I have? I don't know. Because there's about 1 million Michelles out in the world.
Yeah, but no one can spell hyacinth correctly, so.
True. So that's so yeah, it's true. So I felt like, well, maybe I should have done a pen name. That's something else to think about. There's just too many things to think about, and that maybe the captain failed me on that one. I don't know, but we'll go with it. I like my name. It's fine. It's just common like everybody else's.
I have 7
7.
pen names.
You have 7.
Pen names.
Oh my gosh. So how do you do that? Do you have a website for each and every pen name? Do you have them all in one place?
No, and I do it opposite from you. I have the title of the book from the beginning,
Okay.
and then everything fits into it.
So that's kind of your inspiration, starting point is your title.
And the shorter the title is, the easier it is to do what I write. But I write, my first big book draft was 75,000 words. So I can write 24 hours a day. And then when I have to put on the editor hat, because I do edit my own books, that's when the slashing and burning happens.
You're gonna cut his chapter, you're in his paragraph.
I mean, it's ugly.
That's funny. I try to write a relatively clean draft, and that could be a downfall. It's part of that whole sort of planning, sort of pantser, sort of control freak that I am too. So I edit too as I go, but I'll read like chapter 1 and I'll go back and I'll edit and I'll cut things out, and then I rework the flow as I go.
Yeah.
So my first real draft is kind of like my 5th draft by the time I'm done with it and like actually sending it off. So I was gonna tell you, I almost forgot, if you're wanting to write, it just started. It would be just a fun challenge that you could, and you wouldn't have to give it to anybody, and you wouldn't have to worry about copyright. But writerpro.com is doing it's called Novel November, and it's a 50,000 word challenge. It started on November 1st, and it's free. You sign up for free. There's little writing sessions, there's classes, there's group discussions. It's just a huge free thing. There's paid stuff you can do too. But it's a great way to keep you kind of going. It'll tell you how many words a day you have to write. And you just log your words in, and it's kind of like a motivational thing, because then you can talk to other writers. Some people who have never published before are on there, just through chat, and say, hey, trying to write my first book here. What are some words of encouragement? And the community is just beautiful. As of Sunday, and I did not check yesterday because I'm behind, but as of Sunday, there were how many thousand writers? 47,000 writers.
Oh my God.
And 23 million words were already written as of November 2nd. And that's just a free thing that you could totally do just to see if you even like it. You have your own writing program like Word or Libra or Google Docs, whatever you want. You do your own writing, you don't have to put it into anything, but then you go back to this little website that you have your accounts on, you look at your word count for the day, and you say, this is how many words I wrote, and you can interact and take their classes. It's pretty fun. It's a fun way to just kind of get in with the community. I didn't need it because I have my own set of motivational goals, but I thought, I'm gonna check this out, because then I can recommend it to people. Maybe I'll learn something, because I am a firm believer that you never will ever know everything, and you should always be learning.
I think that may have taken the place of that NaNoWriMo,
It
which
did.
was National Novel Writing Month.
Yep,
But
it did.
they stopped doing that this year because of the AI, and it sort of changed the whole dynamic.
It did,
Okay.
and that's exactly what it is.
Gotcha.
It took it, so they're calling it Nov for Novel November.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. So if you've done the NaNoWriMo, I never did that one, but it was another reason I thought, well, I'll try this out this year just for fun, and then I can recommend it to people who are kind of wondering if they even want to do anything. Gives you some motivation.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Anything else?
If you ever wrote in a different genre, would you then consider a pen name? So it would be like totally, like people are gonna look at your name and go, oh, she writes cozy mysteries, and they're not gonna read, this whatever book, this historical fiction that you've now written. And would you consider that?
I think I would have to. I am in the process of working on a paranormal mystery, but I think I'm gonna be able to keep it with my name, because I think it's still gonna fall enough into all of this. We'll see where it goes. But I have heard of a lot of authors that do that, and it's been recommended to do that for that exact reason.
Yeah.
J.D.
Because-
Robin.
Yeah, because
Laura Roberts.
they'll see
Nora
this,
Roberts,
so,
Jane Ann Krentz does it
J.K.
too,
Rowling,
yeah.
yeah, J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, they do it too, actually, I can't remember their other pen names right now, but they do it as well. And usually that is good, just for keeping the branding of the
Yeah,
different
if-
styles out of
If I
people's
see
minds.
a name, I'll know it's a traditional romance. If I see a different name,
Yep.
I'll know it's a paranormal or a historical, you
Yep.
know? And so you're reading it and you know who the writer is, but you see this whole different genre, you know, like the time frame, the characters, the whole different way it's presented. And
It's right, and I think we'll probably end up doing that. The paranormal one, we'll see if it ends up being true paranormal cozy. If it does, then it still fits in the cozy,
Yeah.
and I'll stick it with Michelle. But if it ends up starting to branch a little less cozy, I will have to come up with a pen name.
And then Clifton, and then you'll get male readers.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good idea. That's a great word. I love that idea. Thank you.
smart.
And since my website is Salty Inspirations, I can still keep it all under one house, which is kind of nice too. So,
then you just have to keep track of more paychecks.
yes. Well, Salty Inspirations is an LLC. I did send
No,
that
I
out.
meant if you went with pen names.
Well, no, yes, but Salty Inspirations is my publishing company too, so they're my umbrella. So anything and I set it up that way, so anything and everything I ever do in the future can all just funnel through that.
Okay.
So for me, at least, I won't have to worry about, all the different names and different people. That way it'll just all come through
But that
Salty
is something
Inspirations.
that I wondered about. I did taxes for years, so that was something that I always wondered about.
Well, and a lot of authors don't do an LLC. They do the doing business as for all of their pen names and
DBAs,
things. Yeah, exactly. I started that way. I just decided that I was gonna make a really big go of this, and I thought, you know what? I'm not gonna mess around. We're going with LLC too. And also, I was in love with Salty Inspirations and didn't want anybody to steal it.
And then you could be somebody else's publisher.
It's true, and that is something that I have thought about on and off. I'm not there yet at all, but micro-publishing might be something I could eventually end up branching
Here's your
into.
first customer.
There you go, Allison. That is actually on my many lists of ideas that I have thought of maybe becoming a micro-publisher at some point. So maybe when my ideas start to flow a little less, or maybe when I feel like I need to take a break or something, maybe I'll start doing that. Because I do like working with other authors.
See the way her brain goes? It's never stopped.
It doesn't. I had a friend who described me as the grand finale of a fireworks show. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing. She's like, every time I hang out with you, she's like, the energy, everything is so crazy. She's like, you are the grand finale of a fireworks show. And she's like, you inspire me to get my butt moving. And I'm like, oh, well, thank you, that's sweet. But I don't know, is that really a compliment or is that crazy? I was like, what are you talking about?
No, you take it as a compliment. You
I
don't
do,
look
I
at
do.
it any other way.
I'm gonna be positive about it anyway. No,
Because
she's
that's the
sweet
moment
and
when he goes, ooh.
that's what I'm hoping for. Give me some fireworks.